it makes the experience of life less painful. This is why so many of us are talking about modern dating, because it has fallen apart and it has more consequences than just, oh, dude's not getting laid. All right, welcome back to the party, everybody. This is Morty, and I am your host, Lutch, aka the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Let's party. So, guys, today we are going to be talking about starvation, but not food. We're actually going to be talking about touch starvation, something that, probably you could figure out what it means based on the sound, but I'd never really heard of it before. So I came across this Dr. K video, and he's going over this TikTok. So let's check it out.
I am really struggling with something, and I want to talk about it. But before I do,
It's a little quiet,
I need people, if you are a parent who was like touched out by your children, I do not want to see you in the comments. If you are someone with any kind of neurodivergency and it manifests or shows up as you not liking touch or people touching you, I do not want to see you in the comments.
Because she's a, well, let's let her.
But I feel like I'm dying from like touch starvation, y'all. This isn't.
So yeah, she's saying that she is dying from touch starvation. I don't get hugs. And that's why she was saying, if you're not neurodivergent and you don't feel that same need, or if you have kids that are just all over you all the time, you're not in the same situation as me, and you're not going to understand what I'm saying. So that's where she was coming from. But she's talking about this touch starvation, saying, I don't get hugs.
I don't get hugs. I don't know. I feel like if I were to get the kind of hug that I fucking really want, I would crumble into pieces. How do you deal with that?
The red pill in me wants to be like, well, you shouldn't have done this and that and that and that and that. And all the other things that the red pill guys would talk about why she is alone. But that's not really exactly what we're talking about right now. So those things probably are true. But the fact is, this woman really is struggling, and she's not alone. There's a lot of people of either gender or any gender that feel this way. When we have a society that's constantly online, and then you lock the world down, what do you expect is going to happen?
I really need to be touched, and I know someone's gonna say okay, go to the salon and get your hair done, or get a massage, or get your nails done, right? So someone can hold your hand. None of those people love me.
Exactly.
None of those services love me.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But I'm really struggling. I'm really struggling with I don't get hugs. That shit is. It could be maybe a hello, whatever, maybe. But it's not enough.
What I will say, coming from a red pill perspective, is that if she really wanted, we know there are dudes out there who would, do the deed. And maybe, again, that's not exactly the same thing as loving you, but it's a lot closer than getting a massage or getting your nails did. A man in this situation, SOL. SOL. So, I mean, hit the gym, get on Tinder, and maybe you can fix this. That doesn't make it okay that you're going through it. I'm just saying.
I don't know how. I don't know how you. How am I going to go the rest of my life?
Mm-hmm. This is what hitting the wall looks like.
This. I'm just really struggling. I'm really struggling. I spent last night just going like this.
Jesus. That's sad.
20 minutes.
Her 20 minutes just holding herself because she has no one in her life. And again, let's take the gender out of it and just look at her as a person. That is sad. It's really sad, and not in a loser. Oh, it's sad that so many people are living this way. I'm sure she's not the only person to feel this way.
I'm just, if anyone else is struggling, what are you doing?
Okay, that is some heavy stuff. And I hate to say this, but I think she is spot on. I think she's really tapped into something that I think we've sort of struggled with. So let's like start by understanding a couple things. The first is that this is not a isolated experience. I also think something that a lot of people don't realize is that this is also not like a gendered experience. The other really interesting thing is, even if you talk about some of the stuff around like neurodivergence and people who don't like to be touched, I've heard a lot of people who are neurodivergent and don't like to be touched, but are also starved for touch.
Oh, wow. So, whoa, you're right there, Mark. So there's even people who are who are neurodivergent, meaning they've got some type of, mental deviation that makes them not want people to touch them, but they still have the desire to be touched and are experiencing the same experience. And for those of you who are not familiar, this is Dr. K. He is a legit, PhD doctor or everything. He's not just some guy.
Still longing for it, and they're in some ways like in an even trickier situation,
Right.
because their body, and we'll talk about this in a second, needs exactly what everybody else needs, but their somatosensory cortex doesn't even allow them to engage in it.
Right.
So like what's going on here? So I think what we're seeing, so we've seen that there's a loneliness epidemic. Some indicators of mental illness are getting way worse than they ever have before. The percentage of people who have never been in a romantic relationship is rising astronomically. The percentage of people who have never had sexual relations is also rising astronomically. The number of people who have never had a friend or have zero friends is
never had a friend. I mean, yeah, I guess that makes sense. In my day, I'm 33 years old. Like, you couldn't not, unless you were like, I'm using the term loosely, but unless you were a loser, then you would find friends. But now everything is online. Everything is online. So I can see how there's a lot of kids who just don't fit the mold. Now, makes sense that they would have, relationships with people through their screens. But again, talking about the touch starvation, that doesn't really help.
It's also rising. So I think this is going to be kind of weird. Like, we're going to talk about science for a second, but I think this goes like way further than science. So the first thing is, let's talk about the physiology of like touch starvation. And there is a ton of physiology to it. So, and it's not just oxytocin. So there's one hormone that's kind of like our bonding hormone. This is oxytocin. So oxytocin is what's released when we like cuddle with other people. Like when like we look at parent-child bonding, and when you like cuddle with something, like you get a spurt of oxytocin. Oxytocin does things like calms down your nervous system, reduces your stress hormone response. It's kind of like inversely proportional. And so like literally a hug makes us feel better. It's not just a subjective experience, it's a physiologic experience. These signals are also what allows us to be in love and to feel love. So when you cuddle with someone, there's oxytocin and you feel love, it creates a loving bond between two people. But it's way more than oxytocin. So there are studies on touch deprivation. And the scary thing is that these studies used to be done in orphans. We used to have to go to an orphanage to find a group of people who were starved for physical touch.
Oh my goodness. So the type of thing that we're talking about, the studies to do on people who are starved for touch, they used to have to go to orphanages because everyone else was getting their fix of human contact. And now they can just put a thing out online. Hey, are you a loser? And again, I'm using that facetiously. But like, hey, are you suffering? And you can just get people who are just like that woman who will say yes.
And we'd study them, these orphans in Romania. Now, if we want to do a study on touch deprivation, where do we go? The average person.
TikTok.
We no longer need to go to orphanages.
That's sad.
To find people who are starved for touch. It's a society where it's become the norm. So we see changes in cardiovascular outcomes. We even see changes in things like hemoglobin A1C. So people who are starved for touch, their diabetes is worse. We see
people who are starved for touch, their diabetes is worse. So it's not even just a psychological thing, as he was just saying with the oxytocin. It's literally changing your physiology, your biology. Guys, if you are enjoying this, don't forget that aside from being live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern, after that show and just 24 hours a day, we are there in the Discord. We, meaning the community. So if you're enjoying this and you want to talk to more people like me and more people like yourself, come and join, hang out. We are there all the time. The party never ends. Come and join us.
of course, changes with things like cortisol, mental health parameters like depression and anxiety. But when a human being gets touched, it does way more than oxytocin. And this is what's also interesting. There was one study that took patients and shocked them with electrical shocks. We administered electrical shocks to patients. There were 3 groups of people. One group was by themselves.
Okay.
One group was holding hands with a stranger. Third group was holding hands with a loved one.
I'm going to bet that those who were alone felt the pain the most. Those who were holding the hand of a stranger were in the middle, and those who were holding the hand of a loved one felt the pain the least. What other way could it go, right?
And the perception of pain, the way that the pain was traveled to the brain, the way it was interpreted by the brain's response to getting electrically shocked changes and is blunted and attenuated by human contact, and especially by human contact from a loved one. It literally makes the experience of life less painful. Like literally.
It makes the experience of life less painful. This is why so many of us are talking about modern dating, because it has fallen apart and it has more consequences than just, oh, dude's not getting laid. Yeah, for right now, it's that we're young, so 18 to 35, whatever, may not be getting laid as much. But very soon, it's going to be, no, women who are 40, 50, 60 are going to start offing themselves because of touch starvation. This is precisely what the late, great Kevin Samuels, shout out to Kevin Samuels, this is exactly what he was warning against. This is why his whole thing was, all right, buy a dog and die alone. Because this is where you're going to end up if you don't understand what's at stake. If you spend your early years wasting away your value, and this is getting back into the gendered side of things, because men, you can do a lot more in that realm when you're older. And unfortunately, biologically, it's not the same with women. So that was this whole thing. Kevin Samuels was specifically trying to avoid that woman feeling that way. She should have listened.
It's not like some it's easy to be, no, like literally there's like the perception and response to a simple electrical shock is attenuated by holding hands with a loved one. And what are we seeing? We're seeing worsening like diabetes. We're seeing worsening inflammatory issues. Everyone's going gluten-free and keto diet. Like, why? What's happening with society? Why is everyone so prone to inflammation? Why is everyone so damn starved for touch? There are 2 things that have happened. The first is that our society has become increasingly independent. We've decided that independence is king. And
I bet you she would tell you that she's a strong, independent, don't need no man, until she's holding herself for 20 minutes a night. 20 minutes a night. And I'm not trying to make fun of her. I'm just saying we have to confront these realities. Otherwise, you are next.
in what we should strive for is independence, financial independence, emotional independence. The thought of being interdependent with someone else is something that we call weakness. So if you think about a problem in your life, what does everyone tell you to do with problems in your life? Fix them, right? You should fix it. It's your responsibility. If you're broke, it's your fault. On the flip side, what we'll also do is we'll blame society. And so we'll say it's society's fault that you're broke.
Systemic.
Now, both angles are correct, but both angles are missing something else, which is that when I hear you complain about, oh, you're homeless, that's society's problem or it's your problem. You know whose problem it isn't? It's not mine.
You know whose problem it isn't? Mine. Your problems are your problems. I don't really know where he's going with this, but I like what he's saying so far.
It's not mine. So in our strive for independence, each individual in the world has absolved themselves of the responsibility of caring for other human beings.
Ew. So he's saying maybe it's not such a good thing to say your problems are not my problems. But the issue with that is if you have so many problems and the next person has so many problems and I have so many problems, then I physically can't make your problems my problems. I'm not even able to deal with my own problems. And so I get where he's coming from, that we need to be caring about other people, but you can't pour from an empty cup. You cannot pour from an empty cup.
because it's society's problem. It's the government's problem, or it's your problem. You need to go to therapy. You need to get help. You need to start meditating.
What's wrong with that?
And by the way, if you need to meditate, guess what? There's an app for that. You can do it all on your own. How is meditation? How did it used to be taught?
In a class.
People used to go to ashrams. They used to sit in a gigantic hall and meditate together. So we've decided that independence is king. We've decided that the needs of the individual surpass the needs of the community. And
I do believe that. I do believe that the needs of the individual, not surpass, but, you know, in the sense of collectivism versus individualism. I don't want to make your problems my problems. I don't want you to make my problems your problems. But we have to have a way to take accountability for our own selves so that we have, again, pouring from an empty cup, so that we have enough in our cup to pour for others when we need to, and that they can pour for us. That's the village. That's the community aspect that we're missing.
And we've outsourced the needs of the community to institutions like governments. The second thing that we've done is technology. And we've decided through technology that we're going to meet all of your needs without needing to interact with another human being. So you want to meet people? There's an app for that. You can do it on your phone. You don't have to leave your four walls. You need food? There's an app for that. You don't have to leave your four walls. You don't have to go talk to another, interact with another human being. Good God. Now, even if you look at ride-sharing apps, they have an option on ride-sharing apps. We are so tired of interacting with other human beings, we can't take a conversation. So now I can select something on my app that says, don't talk to me.
I always select that option if I need to.
Heaven forbid, you're talking to me? What's wrong with you? You're talking to me?
Hey, I'm from Jersey. That's just how we roll, all right? Don't talk to me if you don't know me.
Not invite you to talk to me or interact with me, and heaven forbid that you touch me in any way. When I was training to be a psychiatrist, we had this whole segment on touching patients, and it's a good segment, right? You have to be super careful about when you touch another human being and what that means. And one of my supervisors told me, never touch a patient. It is not allowed within the psychoanalytic. And it's like,
sounds like good advice.
That was hard for me. And I listened to them, right? Because there's someone who's crying in your office and like, what do I want to do? I want to give him a hug. But we're not allowed to do that, right? Because they need to manage those emotions on their own.
And also, they can turn around and say, oh, I was in a vulnerable position and you SA'd me. I think it was good advice.
Heaven forbid you hug them. And there's good reasons for that, okay? So it's smart. So I talked to other people, right? And I said, hey, this is hard for me. Help me understand. And they said a lot of brilliant things. So the first question is, if it's hard for you to hug a patient, that's about you. You should never hug a patient because it's hard for you to not hug a patient, because then you're putting yourself ahead of the patient. Brilliant. I shouldn't hug people to make me feel better.
Facts.
And if I feel like an asshole for not hugging someone, I should not do something to a patient that alleviates me feeling like an asshole. Brilliant, actually. So there's a lot of good stuff in there. But I also talk to people about, is it okay to hug patients? And sometimes I hug my patients, but there's a way to do it in therapy, right? You talk to them about it. You say, hey, what does it mean to you? What does it mean to me? What does this mean for us? We explore what that means.
So he's gone, into the specifics of how to deal with this. But, the fact that this is just something that's coming up is really sad. It's really sad that, first of all, we knew that this was going to be the case. We knew that this was going to be the case. As soon as feminism really got past its first wave and it started becoming more about female supremacy, that specifically for women, this touch starvation, as we're going to call it, was going to be inevitable. When you feel entitled to the top of the top and you won't settle, buy a dog and die alone. Those are, unfortunately, your options. And again, I don't want to focus it too much on just women and that woman, but that was the example we were given. And I mean, is that not appropriate to say, maybe if you'd called Kevin Samuels, you might have a man there to give you a hug. I don't know, guys. You let me know what you think in the comments below. Thank you so much for partying with us. Once again, this is Morty, and I am your host, Lutch, a.k.a. the Indian Jesus, here to resurrect the second coming of common sense. Until next time, guys, check us out live every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 8 p.m. Eastern. Until then, we are out of here. Peace.